Hey everybody, welcome to Bellman Woodworking Designs with me, Brent Bellman. And today we're going to look at how to build one of these, a dartboard with a scoreboard that you can use to play darts with your friends and your family. So let's get to it and check out how you can build one of these so you can start having a blast with your friends.
Alright, so for the supplies for this project, I used a 1/4 inch plywood panel, and this is one of the 2 foot by 4 foot panels they sell at Lowe's and Home Depot. And I went with this because I just had an idea in mind and I knew that would be the exact fit that I wanted, and it was a little more cost effective than buying the full 4 foot by 8 foot sheet and then using that. I know I could use that plywood later, but at this point in time I just don't have a need to have a bunch of plywood laying around. So for the edges, I did use poplar, and I just thought that'd be a good hardwood. And seeing as how this is a dartboard and it'd be darts throwing at it, I've seen lots of dartboards where the border going around the dartboard gets pretty chewed up by darts that miss the dartboard. So I thought, why not use a hardwood? And I didn't want to use anything super fancy for that, so I used poplar, and I thought that would hold up. So once I cut the poplar down to size, I did glue and brad nail those onto the 2 foot by 4 foot project panel here, the plywood. I clamped those up and then brad nailed and glued them into place. And I did this on all 4 sides just to give it a border. And I thought about cutting 45-degree angles on the sides there to just frame it out a little bit better, but at this point I thought less is more. I just wanted the border on there and didn't want to go to all the hassle. So these are just straight edge corners, but they look great in the final product, and it's everything that I wanted it to be. Now for the dartboard, I knew I needed to account for the corks are going to be behind it. So originally I just had a piece of plywood. I cut these 3 pieces, but I had to add one more 1/8 inch sheet of plywood on top of there just to build it up to the right thickness, so the corks would be sitting right behind the dartboard there. Now at this point you can see I did want to divide it in half. I want to have a scoreboard on one side and a dartboard on the other. And the advice I'll give you on this, I tried as best I could to make sure there wasn't a gap, but there's no way you're going to line up all these corks the same way twice. And I put these corks in here multiple times to try to make sure I would put that middle board right where I wanted it, where there wouldn't be any kind of gap left over. I think when it was all done, I have about an 1/8 of an inch gap left on the side, but it still looks great. I'm not super picky. I'm not selling this to anyone, so for my purposes, I think it looks awesome. But I did sand down all the edges here to make sure everything was flush, and sanded down the corners, everything anyway, just to make sure everything was flush and on all sides. So at this point, I did use, this is a candlelight stain to stain the entire thing, the whole dartboard on both sides. I didn't stain, of course, where the dartboard was going to go on the pieces of plywood there. I wanted to make sure I could have a good gluing surface for that, and so I left that undone. But for these corks, so this is a Loctite glue here, and I know I'm gluing on top of the stain there, but it said this was an industrial strength adhesive, so I'm not sure if that's just fancy words or not, but I trusted it'd be good enough to stick corks on there. Corks weigh little to nothing, so I figured the stain wouldn't hurt that too much. And those corks are on there right now, and I assume they'll hang on there for a long time, and if somehow one of them falls off, I'll glue it back on. So I thought this would work just great for that. So when you're putting these corks on, you of course can pick any pattern that you want. I just went with this kind of back and forth pattern. I thought it would still keep it nice and square all the way around. But if you do care, you can make sure you pick which way you want the corks to face. If you've got some cool bottles of wine that you've had, you can make those labels stick out. So just kind of take that into consideration as you glue these down. And probably when I glued it down, it took me at least an hour to glue all those down, maybe a little more. That just takes a while. You just gotta stick with it. So at this point, just kind of dry fitting the dartboard on to make sure it's going to look good where it's at, make sure there's no gaps or anything like that, and it worked great. So to attach this to the wall, I did do a French Pleat. This was some leftover of the poplar board that I didn't use, and so I'm cutting it there at 45 degrees to make that French Pleat, and I cut it almost the entire length of the dartboard, but left it a little bit shy on each side just so you wouldn't see that exposed when it was hung up on the wall. So here you can see I am gluing that French Pleat on, And for gluing that on, I did go back and add brad nails to that. Make sure if you're doing this, always account for the length of your brad nails. You don't want to be shooting nails through your cleat and through your finished piece on the other side, because that's definitely not a good thing to have. So over here I would cut spacers, because if any of you have done French cleats, you know you've got to have a spacer, because otherwise you'll have your project will be flopping around the wall. So these were just spacers I cut to make sure that the whole dartboard would sit at the same depth all the way across the wall. So right here I'm making holders for the darts. I did make a holder on each side. Again, this is just some of the poplar that was left over, and just cut it to kind of these pieces here just to hold the darts in place, and they worked really great. And once I had them cut down to size, then I just drilled 3 holes. There's 3 darts on each side of the game of darts, and I made sure, of course, those holes fit to the size of the dart there. So for this dartboard, I knew I wanted to make the scoreboard on the other side. I wanted to have that stand out a little bit, so it wasn't just glued straight on there. So right now I'm just cutting spacers that are going to be glued on the back of the dartboard, just to make it stand off there, give it kind of a more 3D look and feel to it there. And this was just scrap plywood that I glued and did nail in the back. Now on this, and I didn't film this, I did do some edge banding because the scoreboard is made of plywood itself. I didn't want to have that looking the plywood edging on there, so I did cut some real thin strips of poplar and glued those onto the edge just so it would have a nice good look all the way around it. So this is just chalkboard spray paint. I don't have a piece of slate that's going on here. Again, it's just plywood, but this will work great. It's something that's going to be in my house, so you can wipe it down, and I've used it on some other projects and it seemed to have worked really well. So but again, it's a scoreboard. It's not going to look perfect all the time. My wife had played darts at a couple pubs, and chalkboards are chalkboards. They're meant to be a little bit dirty, so I'm not worried if it doesn't look perfectly black, from now on. So I think it'll work just great. I did have a chalk rail on there. I didn't film that. Just a little small chalk rail, just a piece I could have grooved in and stained it and glued it on there. And here I am gluing on those dart holders that you saw me cut earlier. So I did, trying to make sure I measured all the way around to make sure everything was straight and as even as possible. Just want everything to look symmetrical, just because that's how I want it to look, and I think most people would want things to look nice and even and symmetrical. So just double check all your measurements, and Jimmy DeRisto always says if it looks straight, it is straight. So I try the best just to eyeball it, but also use a ruler as well. So do what you got to do to make it straight. Alright, so the last step is actually to attach the dartboard, and I put a lot of glue on there. It's pretty liberal with that. Put that on there and let it dry overnight, just to make sure that would not fall off. So there it is, and this was a really great project.
Alright, so to hang the dartboard that I made, I put a French Pleat up here on the wall. I put my level up here to make sure it was level as I was putting it up. And the other side of the French Pleat is on my dartboard down here below. So now we're going to put it up on the wall, and it's showing up there just great. So let's try it out and see how it works. Okay, this is always a scary part for me, because I'm afraid whatever I put on the wall is going to fall off. Even though I know I put the screws into the 2x4. So anyhow, it looks like it's up here. Yeah, it looks like it's ready to go. So let's throw a few darts at it and see how it does. Alright, so it looks like it's working pretty awesome. It's doing its job, catching the darts. All I need now is some chalk to go on here for the rail, my chalkboard, and this thing will be officially ready to go, officially to place some darts. So, I hope you really enjoyed this project. I know I did. My wonderful, awesome wife bought me this dartboard a year ago, and I'm just now getting this project done. So it's exciting to see it done, exciting to see it up on the wall. So we'll definitely be playing some darts soon, and it'll be great to do. So, again, if you like what I'm doing, if you like my channel, if you like this project or any of the other projects I've done, be sure to click that subscribe button below, click the like button for the video. Don't forget you can also catch me on Patreon, and if you choose to go on there, it's a place where where you can support me and support all the things that I'm doing. So thanks again, you guys, for watching this video. I really appreciate all your support in everything that I'm doing. So until next time, be inspired, keep learning, keep building.